Sally and welcome to the Cellar Door. I am in the gorgeous McLaren Vale wine region in South Australia, visiting one of the oldest and biggest wineries in the country, Hardy's Wine. So Marty, this is where our trip down memory lane starts.
Yes, so this is the guy that started this whole operation. So this is Thomas Hardy.
Yep.
And this statue, or the bust, was unveiled by Tammy Fraser back in the 70s, the wife of the Prime Minister at the time, Malcolm Fraser. So yeah, he sort of keeps watch over the site, and we have events out on the lawn here, and it's like he's just keeping an eye on things and making sure that everything's running smoothly as he would have
Thank you, Thomas.
back in the day.
Thank you for all of your wine.
So this is the winemaker viewing platform. So customers can come in here any time of year, but especially during vintage, and see the winery in action. So you can actually see the fermenters fermenting, plunging, pump overs, etc. And yeah, the cellar hands at work.
This is the end of vintage now, isn't it?
This is the end of vintage, yeah. So we've crushed the majority of our tonnage. So we've crushed about 5,500 tonne, and we're just getting some Coonawarra Cabernet in as we speak.
This is quite unique, isn't it? You don't usually get to see all of this.
Yeah, it is quite unique. There's not too many places you can come in and actually see the winery in action. So we're pretty happy with the change. So you were never able to come in here before, but about 4 years ago we had a bit of a facelift and some renovations, and yeah, this is probably my favourite part.
Down here?
So down here you can actually see the remnants of the original winery. So before it was all stainless steel, concrete open fermenters. So the cellar hands had to actually get in there and shovel the skins out. Nowadays these are all hydraulically lifted, and the skins basically tip out themselves.
Right out. Easy peasy.
The cellar hands are a bit tougher back in those days.
I can imagine.
But yeah, open fermenters made out of concrete. So those used to run all the way through this place. But in 2004 we had all of this redone. So it's one of the best fermentation facilities in the Southern Hemisphere.
So they were using this old school style till 2004?
Yes, absolutely.
It's hard work, hard yakka.
Sure was. Because it is such an old site, a lot of history's happened here. So you can actually come in here and read a bit about the Hardy family, and also the winemaking process from harvest right through to bottling as well. And a few little artefacts over here from the Hardy family, as well as the oldest bottle of Australian wine in existence, so 1867
The
Tintara Vineyards Association red.
Bottle of wine in existence?
The oldest
in Australia.
known bottle of Australian red wine in existence. There was an older one, but when it went to auction, the auctioneer actually dropped it. And so this became the oldest one. So
oh my goodness.
I don't think that guy was too popular. So Sally, this is Thomas Hardy that started the whole operation. He first came out to Australia in 1850 as just a 20-year-old. And he got put out on a property at Ranella with John Rennell, who was South Australia's first winemaker. And his job was to look after the cattle, but he didn't do a very good job. He lost the herd twice. So John Rennell then put him out in the vineyard, and he seemed to do a little bit better at growing grapes than he did at looking after cattle.
So that's where it started for him?
Yeah. So he then went down to the gold rush in Victoria, which was happening around that time, and made a bit of money actually selling meat to the miners rather than mining for gold. Like the others.
Well, they've got to eat, don't they, while they're fossicking?
Right. Yeah, he's quite a smart man actually. And then when he came back, he was able to purchase Bankside, which was his first winery, first property on the River Torrens just outside of Adelaide.
So he put winemaking on hold for a little bit and then came back to it.
He did, yep. So he planted grapes, then he planted fruit, but the grapes then took over, and by about 1890 he was South Australia's most sort of prominent winemaker.
Wow.
So Sally, this is the Thomas Hardy room. So this was part of the original Mortlot flour mill. So before this was a winery, it was a flour mill, which was built in 1852. So Thomas Hardy pretty much purchased it like this. We had a little bit of money spent on this recently, so it looks a little bit special now.
Yeah. And so what happens in this room now?
So this is where we host some of our visitors. So if we have international guests, we host them in here and look after them. We also do wine club dinners and things like that in here. And
a special place.
Absolutely.
It's very nice.
We treat people.
Very nice. And these beams are so strong that they're holding up barrels.
Yes, so it was pretty much purpose built, which is why Thomas Hardy bought it, because for cellaring wine, it's best to keep fortifieds especially near the ceiling where it's warmer, so they can actually develop and become mature. So very strong structure, which was almost purpose built for cellaring wine. So this is pretty much what it looked like back in the day.
Right.
And you'll see up on this beam, every winemaker that has done a stint at Tintara, when they leave the company, they need to put their name up on the beam in chalk.
A bit of an autograph wall.
Yeah, absolutely.
Famous wine names up there.
There are, so Jeff Merrill there, David O'Leary, Jeff Weaver, Tim James. Down the end there, Steve Pennell, who's gone on to do some pretty good things in the area.
And this area here?
So
original furniture?
This is the real deal. So these chairs were actually sourced from our head office at Ranella. They haven't been refurbished or anything. That is proper
They're in mint
retro.
condition.
Proper retro furniture there.
And this is Eileen Hardy?
This is Eileen Hardy, yes. So almost like a shrine to her. She was the matriarch of our company for quite some time. Her husband, Thomas Mayfield Hardy, passed away in a plane crash back in 1938, as well as a whole generation of winemakers. And she pretty much took over the company and became the face of Hardy's for quite a few years there. So in 1973, for her 80th birthday, her sons made a very special wine for her under her name, called Eileen Hardy.
Oh, rightly so.
And our best red goes into that label every single year. So currently it's 2015 vintage Eileen Hardy Shiraz, and it's always McLaren Vale fruit. In her honour.
I'm sure she'd be proud.
She would be.
Matt, where did your love affair with wine begin?
As a teenager, one of my first jobs was working in a bottle store, and I was fascinated by the array of choices. I mean, wines were still labelled as Claret and Hermitage and Burgundy, and I was just fascinated by it and dove into it to sort of work out what the difference was, and it just seemed there's so many variables that I was enticed into it. And then my wife-to-be, a few years later, she was involved in the wine industry. Her family had a history. They were from the Clare Valley. Suggested on one of the first nights that I went round for a meal with my wife's parents to bring a bottle of wine. So back into a bottle store, and I was just going through, and I thought, you know, I'd like to make an informed choice. And
you'd like to impress?
Yes, because being from the wine industry, I didn't want to get it wrong.
Yeah.
And you know, I walked in and there's a Cabernet Sauvignon from Coonawarra, or there's a Shiraz from McLaren Vale, or a Pinot from Tasmania, and it was just, I had to get into it.
Yeah.
And the more I did get into it, the more I read, the more fascinated I became. And then we started touring and tasting more, and it's just intriguing. You know, the great thing about wine is that no two wines are the same, and every vintage and every region and every producer produces something different.
Yeah.
So it's endlessly fascinating, fantastic lifestyle, and great for travel. And so.
And how did you find yourself here at Hardy's as the head winemaker?
Opportunity came up. I'd been working in Coonawarra for 9 years. I've worked in a few other regions, and McLaren Vale was where I started my wine career, and my family, a lot of our family are in Adelaide, so it was always a goal to get back to McLaren Vale because it's such a beautiful region. Love the wines, love the lifestyle. We're close to the beach, we're close to the hills, and I think the wines that we produce are, you know, are world class. And the opportunity to work with premium wines in this region was too good to refuse, and couldn't be happier 6 years later.
Great. And what sort of things excite you about Hardy's?
I guess the history and the heritage.
There's a long legacy, isn't there? in
Yeah.
Thomas Hardy.
You know, we celebrated 165 years of Hardy's winemaking recently, and with that heritage is something you can't buy. I mean, to be involved in that is an incredible honour. There's a lot of pressure because we want to maintain the high standards that have been set by the company over such a long period of time. Okay, so after the wine's finished fermentation, we drain off the wine, send it to destination tank, and the skins are put into this basket press.
Yep.
Which is fantastic historical technology. This piece is actually 100 years old this year.
I can't believe that. It looks brand spanking new.
Yeah,
it's shiny.
been looked after well over the years. But this process, basket pressing, is a traditional method for pressing of the skins. There's a lot of colour and flavour still in the skins. So, as you can see,
look at
start
that.
increasing the pressure and it starts floating out.
What a great colour. And this is the Merlot?
Yes, that's right, Clarendon Merlot. So Ben, the cellar hand, is operating the basket at the moment, and he increases the pressure very slowly. This process can take 30 to 45 minutes.
Oh, really?
As we gradually increase the pressure so that we're not pressing too hard.
Yep.
If you press too hard, you end up extracting bitter tannins and the wine can become quite astringent.
Right.
So we come down and taste the wine constantly to make sure that we aren't pressing too hard.
Yeah.
And once we get to that point where we think there is some bitterness, then we'll stop and push the wine off into the tank. Right. So you can see, being such a young wine, it's still fantastic colours.
Beautiful. It's like paint, isn't it?
It's far from a finished wine, so it still smells very much like it's fermenting. So it's a very slow process, quite labour intensive, but we get the best results, and all our premium wines go through the basket press.
Okay. And so after this, it's into the barrel?
That's right, yeah.
Right. What stands out as a Hardy's wine?
I think Hardy's wines are always very premium. They are, genuine wines. They're always full of flavour and have a unique structure. I think that they are definitely made to age and drink really well. But there's so much history in this company, and that they've been doing it for so long that they really have refined a great method for producing fantastic wines. And in this region in particular, we've got access to some of the some really old vines, some fantastic fruit resource. We've got the combination of the newest and latest technology mixed in with traditional technology like the basket press.
Yeah.
And we're able just to produce small batches of ultra premium wines that well, I really like drinking, and I hope other people do too.
I'm sure they do. And what are some of those wines that are consistently, cream of the crop, the popular ones?
The cream of the crop would be the Eileen Hardy and the Thomas Hardy red wines, and the Eileen Hardy Chardonnay. We make a selection of individual vineyard series wines from McLaren Vale as well. All of those are very small batch and very high quality wines. The more popular wines would be the Tintara Shiraz and hopefully our soon to be released Char.
Yeah, well that brings me to the new Char, which is, you're quite innovative here at Hardy's. So tell me more about the Char number 3.
So the Char number 3 is a new product. We have McLaren Vale Shiraz and McLaren Vale Cabernet Sauvignon. What's unique about this one is that we've introduced new methods of aging the wine in charred oak barriques. Charred barrels are actually set on fire on the inside, so that there's flaming and it imparts a very toasty, charry character to the barrels, whereas traditional wine barrels are toasted, so they're not actually set on fire, they're just heated.
Yes.
So we've used a combination of char barrels and traditional wine barrels, and what we've come up with is this new wine. This is the Shiraz Char number 3.
Wow.
So 2018, a fantastic vintage. We've got wines of intense flavour and colour, very brightly fruited, rich wines, and we've put those wines into these new barriques. or barrels, charred barrels, and what we've got out of that is a wine with lovely sort of charry characters and intense coffee, and a lovely sweet, rich vanilla character to the wine.
Oh wow! In this one here.
Yep, that's right.
Wow. So you set the barrel on fire, not when the wine's in there.
No, that's right. Well, we don't actually do it, the coopers do. So
right.
The barrels are delivered there here in that situation. We age the wine.
Vanilla. Wow, it smells amazing. Is there any smokiness to it?
Yeah, there's a slight smokiness. I think definitely a charry character there, but it's quite subtle. The toastiness comes through, and it's actually a really good wine to have with like a barbecue or.
Yes. Well, smoked food is all the rage at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
I feel like everyone's having a smoked meal here in McLaren Vale. So you've got the wine to go with it.
Yep. Interestingly, it also goes really well with Asian and spicy dishes.
Spicy dishes.
It's got that extra depth of flavour and character to sort of
Wow,
to
that's
match them.
amazing. Wow, and that's the Shiraz.
Yep, that's right.
Wow. And also the artwork from a local artist, is that right?
He's a specialist with charcoal. He works with flames. He sort of holds a flame to the paper, and
Really?
he came up with this design, which is fantastic. We're really, really happy with it.
Wow, how unique. That's great. So this is where the fortified wines are kept?
Yeah, some of them. So this is the ground floor of where we were before.
Yeah.
So we keep some tawnies in here. So these would be about 10 years old. And this whole room is pretty much a fortified winemaking display room.
Right.
Just to give people an idea of the winemaking process behind Fortifieds and sort of a tribute to the history of the Australian wine industry.
Yeah, 'cause that's how it started.
Absolutely. So originally, most of the wine produced in Australia was actually fortified wine.
Yeah, yeah. And down here looks like it's the original flooring?
Yes, so we managed to keep a few of the original wooden cobblestones. They haven't held up all that well, but we sort of kept it just a square, just to show people what it was like originally when this was part of the working winery.
Yeah, back with horse and carts.
Absolutely. So,
Buggies.
yeah, and this amazing display here is to give people an idea of the different fortified wine styles that we produce. And also what happens with age along the way.
colour.
But some amazing colours there. And also some brandies as well. So we used to make brandy on site here.
Right.
And we actually have a still house on site with the old brandy still in there.
Still in there?
Absolutely.
And you have the world's only liqueur Sauvignon Blanc.
We think so. But yes, we make a rare liqueur Sauvignon Blanc. It's part of our rare fortified range.
Yeah.
So there's a Muscat, a Tawny and a liqueur Sauvignon Blanc from what we think is the oldest Sauvignon Blanc vineyard in Australia, if not the world.
Wow, I cannot wait to try that. And it's not all about just the brand new wines here, is it though? Of course, there's a lot of history and you still do fortified wines.
That's correct. We are continuing to make fortified wines. This year we did a fortified Sauvignon Blanc and a fortified Touriga.
Wow.
Traditional Portuguese or fortified wine variety. What that involves is we bring the fruit in like normal and we put it into a fermenter, it's crushed, and then at a certain point in time we add spirit, and that fortifies the wine and the fermentation stops. But what we do is we add it before the primary fermentation has finished, so there's still a fair bit of residual sugar, so the wines are very sweet.
Sweet, okay.
And what we've got here to try also is Hardy's Rare Sauvignon Blanc.
Yes, and I've heard about this. It's the only one in the world, so we think.
Yep.
We'd like to know if there is another one.
So this wine is made from McLaren Vale Sauvignon Blanc. The vines are very old, off the Hardy's vineyard. This particular wine, after each wine is made from the year, it goes into the Cellar system. So it's the wine cascades. The average age on this wine is about 17 years. So the wine sits in the barrel for a long period of time and concentrates constantly.
Wow.
And what you end up with is this incredibly rich and luscious, sweet just marvellous wine. You sit there and
Yeah.
enjoy the aromas for hours. It's just...
And it's nothing like a South Block.
No, that's right.
It's not like drinking a chilled white wine.
No, it's hard to say. It's more like a rich Chardonnay or something, but it's I think the best thing to do with the Sauv Blanc.
It smells like Christmas cake. Oh, it's rich. Wow, that's delicious.
It's very incredibly powerful and it has amazing complexity.
Nothing like a Sauvignon Blanc.
No.
Wow, that's delicious.
It's fantastic. It would go brilliantly with a cream caramel.
Have you got any of that?
We'll see what we can do. Cheers.
There's never been a better time to experience one of South Australia's best bed and breakfast getaways. That's because when you go online and book 2 nights at the Manor Estate, set in the rolling hills of McLaren Vale, you'll receive an extra special night absolutely free. So go online and book 2 nights of roaring fireplaces, secluded terraces and private spas at the luxurious Manor Estate and receive your extra special night absolutely free. Go to manorestate.com.au and book now.
Sophie, you're a 5th generation Angove family member and the viticulturist here, so you're in charge of all these beautiful flourishing vines.
Yes.
You really must know the history behind your vines.
Yes, and on this particular property, we bought this property in 2008, and from the time we purchased it, we decided that organic was the way to go.
Yeah.
So we started conversion, which means not using any synthetic herbicides or pesticides on the property. And slowly we've been establishing the vines to be able to cope with this. It's quite hard on the vines to go from conventionally farmed to organically farmed, but they're really flourishing now. And the soil microclimate's really lovely, worms and lots of insects, so it's working really well.
And you've also got the Indian ducks running around helping with that. What do they do?
They eat our snails actually. So probably it's one of the biggest problems that we have on the vineyard is snails. They come out when the vine first bursts and the snails eat all of the shoots off and really put the vine backwards. So the Indian runner ducks forage in the ground and eat the snails off the vine and works really, really well for us.
And it's nice to have them as a pet, isn't it?
It is, and they provide some compost too.
Great.
And they're super cute to watch. They're just running around and they shake their little tail feathers.
And that's one of the elements of organic farming, isn't it?
It's using natural ways of addressing your pest and disease.
Yes.
So we also have bat boxes on the property, and the bat boxes try and encourage the local bats to come and roost in the area. The bats then come out at night and eat all of the insects.
Because I actually thought that maybe bats were a hindrance to the grapes, that they would eat the grapes.
No, these are little micro bats, so they're really tiny.
It's different to fruit bats.
Different to fruit bats, yeah. I don't know what they would do.
Yeah, eat all your grapes maybe.
Yeah.
So what are some of the other challenges with having an organic vineyard?
Probably the main challenge are weeds. So because you can't use a herbicide to get rid of them, you really have to hand hoe, you do a lot of mowing. It's quite labour intensive.
Yep.
So you increase your cost a little bit, but there are some really good weeds. So you have to pick and choose your battles because weeds do increase that nutrient cycling in the soil, which can be really good for the vines. But things like kakuyu and cooch can be quite competitive with the vine, which causes some water stress during summer. So we use things like pine oil to try and control the grasses, and then we do a lot of hand hoeing.
And these roses on the end here are indication of disease or weeds, if they start to die first, is that right?
In the past, they used to use them as an early indicator of pest and disease, but generally the type of pest and disease that affects the roses is slightly different to the one that affects the vines. So really it is an early indicator that conditions are right for disease to be in your vines.
Right.
So it's just saying, have a look.
Yeah, and I mean, they look good, so.
They look beautiful. Nowadays we just love them because they look beautiful. Yeah.
Richard, you're a 5th generation member of the Angove family. You're the managing director here and the winemaker. You're a busy man. How did the wine story begin for your family?
Well, my great-great-grandfather was a medical doctor, and he's from Cornwall, and he and his wife got on a boat in 1886 and travelled with their 5 children from Cornwall to Adelaide to start a new life, to start a medical practice.
Yeah.
And you can imagine what it was like, you know, back in those days, travelling on a boat with 5 children, one of whom was 1 year old. You know, just an amazing journey even just to get here.
To make it,
Yeah, and he started a medical practice, and like many doctors, would make wine on the side and would go and use it as a tonic for his patients. So his hobby of winemaking really quickly began a real business, which is how we are here today. Yeah.
So was it for medicinal purposes at the start?
Medicinal purposes, that's right, because a doctor in those days, it was very much a community service role, and so he needed other ways to try and support his family, and so he started making wine.
How interesting, because there were a lot of medical practitioners in the wine industry back in the early days, and still now I'm finding.
And I guess the Australian wine industry was really established in the early days by doctors, because they were reasonably smart, and they had the chemistry background, and famous names like Penfold was a doctor, and Wynne was a doctor, and so they were really founding members of a really fantastic industry.
And your wife is a doctor? It just goes on and on.
Yes.
So we know wine's good for you then.
Everything in moderation.
That's right, that's right. Now this room is beautiful here at Angove. I can see you've won a lot of awards for your wines.
We've been very lucky to win a few awards. You know, we're very lucky. McLaren Vale is an amazing place to grow grapes.
Yes.
I think it's one of the most consistent places to grow grapes in the world. And the flavours that we get out of the grapes here mean that our wines are lovely and balanced. They're vibrant, they're very drinkable, and occasionally we get lucky and win a few awards with them.
Yeah, beautiful trophies too.
Yeah.
And also, what are some of these, you know, antiques that are placed around? Are they from your great-great-great-grandfathers?
Yeah, so, you know, back in the day, winemaking was a lot different to what it was today, and we'd have to use old scales to measure winemaking inputs, and, you know, microscopes to count yeast numbers and all that sort of stuff. And we're really, really fortunate that we've still got all that stuff from all the historical items.
So this is the real deal?
Yeah, to
it looks like it's brand new.
Very, really meticulously looked after. That was something my grandfather was very meticulous about, was keeping a really good record of history, but also keeping the tools and instruments of winemaking of the past in a really good condition, so that we can always see what it was like back in the day, because often I look at where we are today and think, geez, we get it kind of easy in terms of the technology that's available to us, and you know, farming's a lot different. There was, you know, back in the 1800s and early 1900s, it was horse and cart.
Yeah, we have electricity now.
Yeah, that's right.
That helps. Now, biodynamic wines.
Yes.
What does that mean?
There's different levels of biodynamics. So we are probably what you consider just the entry level of biodynamics. We spray a preparation of 500 and 501. They use numbers, so it's a cow manure kind of fertiliser that we spray out, and also a silica spray, which can increase the firmness of the berry skin. And this can be done as many times as you like throughout the year. We do it a few times. It really increases the vibrancy of the vine and the health of the soils. But there's also other things that you can use, like tea extracts and preparations that work for different other problems. This is something we're looking at increasing in our vineyard this year. So yeah, we're still learning about it.
Okay, so is your goal for Angove to become completely carbon neutral, sustainable? The whole hog?
I think we're just starting with organics and we'll go from there. We really want to be as sustainable as possible. Obviously, being a 5th generation winery, we need to be able to make sure that we can sustain it for the next generations to come, which means that we need to look after our water, look after our soil, look after the land. So yeah, I think organic, carbon neutral, possibly eventually. It would be amazing if we could do that.
I guess we all have to look at that for every industry?
Definitely.
Yeah. So being a family business, what are some of the challenges working with your siblings?
No challenges there at all. No.
They don't come into your domain, you don't go into theirs?
We're actually, it's really great because we all have different strengths and we all are interested in completely separate areas of the business.
That's great.
So we haven't stepped on each other's toes too much, I don't think. It's actually, I think it's nice. It means that you see each other more often than what you would maybe see a sibling that works in another business.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, of course, any family has interesting dynamics, but it's always fun.
Yeah. Now, you grew up on your family vineyard, not this one, but your one in Renmark. What was that like?
It was good. We were always running around. Back in the day when I was a child, we used to flood irrigate. Nowadays we drip irrigate. So flood irrigation is when you just turn a tap on at the end of a row and it floods both sides. So we used to get our bathers on and dive in the mud, and that was always really fun memories.
That's taking like running under a sprinkler and
to the next level.
Yeah,
definitely. That's probably the best part of it. I think I used to offer to prune the vines and go out for about 5 minutes, and then it was too hard for me. So I'd go back in and I'd change my mind.
What age were you working on the vineyard?
Well, not really working.
Right.
I don't think I could consider that, but maybe 9 or 10.
Really?
Yeah,
First job.
but it was always just fun.
Yeah.
It wasn't really for money or
Do you remember
anything like that.
Do you remember the moment where you went, no, I want to make a career out of this, I want to stay in the family biz?
Yeah, because it was only about 4 years ago.
Right.
Yep, so I started as a teacher and then I went into a natural sciences field, so I studied science at university. And then when Angove went organic, I kind of saw that there could be a bit of a common link there between my enjoyment of natural sciences and the organic side of viticulture. So it was really very recent that I thought that I wanted to be in the wine industry.
And are you loving it?
It's great. Yeah, enjoying it a lot.
Yeah. So you must know a lot about some of the ups and downs your family would have had over the years making wine.
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, it's an agricultural business. We rely on the land and we rely on Mother Nature. And so there are peaks and troughs and there are always challenges. Something that we're very mindful about, being fifth generation, is sustainability. So we want to leave the earth and the soil in a better condition than it was now for my children and my children's children, because we are passionately family owned and we hope to remain that well into the future. We've had 132 years of business so far, and we really want to be making wine in another 132 years. So
you want your kids to go into the business?
Oh, they can do whatever they like. But I think there was never any pressure on us as siblings to get into the family business. What I wanted to do straight out of school was be a ski instructor, and, but I soon realised that I needed to get a haircut and a real job. Because,
that sort of job doesn't last forever. Usually.
No, but no, it'd be great if the kids got involved, but it'd be great if they did something else as well. Yep.
So what brought you back into the industry?
I originally studied business and then I realised I didn't want to work in an office, which is quite funny because these days I work in an office. But I did a vintage at our winery and realised it was good fun. It was quite manual and I enjoyed being outside. And so I went back and studied winemaking, and from there I was very lucky to get a job overseas and worked for lots of other companies and met different people and saw how wine was made in different ways, and eventually sort of felt like I was ready and I had something to contribute coming back into the business, bringing some knowledge from other producers back in and hopefully contributing. So,
well, you're contributing to some great wines here.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all the colours of the world are in front of me here, the wine world. So you can come to the Cellar Door and have lots of different experiences, right? This is just one of them, a wine flight.
Yeah, that's right. We're in the lounge and library part of our Cellar Door, so lovely vibe, I guess. And we do matching of 5 wines, and they can be red, or you've got a mixture of whites, rosés, and red as well, and you can choose whether they're matched with local cheeses or really lovely bespoke local chocolates.
Yeah, these look so beautiful.
Wine and chocolate, wine and cheese, they sort of go hand in hand. So it's something that people come down and they can take their time, have a look at different styles of wine and taste a few really nice nice bit of local produce.
Yep.
And yeah, just have a really nice time. We're right in the middle of our vineyard, so you can taste this Shiraz here that was literally grown right out the front, which is quite a unique experience to have.
Yeah. It's a beautiful spot, just looking out over all the vines.
Yeah.
And so what are some of your standout wines?
Oh, I think our Warboys Vineyard Shiraz is consistently rated very highly. It's won a couple of trophies, and it's grown from some of the oldest vines on the vineyard, planted in the 1930s. So lovely old vines producing really concentrated grapes, really concentrated flavours that make a wine that has intensity, approachability. We really work hard on our making our wines lovely, silky and smooth and fresh, balanced, and really food friendly, so they go well with food. And I think that's a really important part about wine, is that it goes really well with food. It doesn't overpower the food. It's a complement, and you know, it's just another ingredient to having a really nice time over dinner with family or friends.
What excites you about the wine industry here in McLaren Vale?
I think the thing about McLaren Vale is that it has a climate that's really favourable to being organic, and it also has these little remnant parts of natural vegetation, which I think we can incorporate into increasing the organics and increasing the species sustainability in the area. That's something that I'm really passionate about, is trying to make sure that agriculture and the natural environment go hand in hand, because I think they can coexist. It's just making sure that people are on board and they're leaving little parts of their vineyard for natural vegetation where native species can make their home.
What are the characteristics of your wines?
McLaren Vale wines are elegant styles of wines. So they have lovely fruitiness, but they also have a really great structure and nice tannin as well. So the soils in McLaren Vale, the geology is so interesting here. There's 13 different geologies, and they all produce slightly different wine styles. So we do 4 single vineyard wines. One comes from this vineyard, which is quite a nice, rich, loamy vineyard. We also get one from a really sandy vineyard. So in Blewett Springs, all of this used to be underwater. There used to be an ocean here, and Blewett Springs is just over the top of that hill over there. And it's beach sand. It produces really lovely, elegant floral styles. We also get a wine from Selleck's Foothills. That's quite a schisty, shaly vineyard, which it really struggles for nutrients, so it produces this really lovely wine because it thinks that it's really stressed. So it puts all of its energy into its reproductive output, which is the grape. So it makes really lovely wine from that one. And then we have another one at Wollonga, and that's a black cracking clay, really rich, and also it's probably the most intense style of wine that we have here, quite heavy and peppery and fruity.
I love how you describe the soils here. It's very interesting. I can tell that you were a teacher at one point.
Really?
I feel very educated.
Thank you.
Thank you. And what do you think sets Angove apart from the other wineries?
That's one of the great things about the wine industry, is there's great people involved at all levels. I guess we're very passionate about being family owned and operated, and as well as growing grapes organically and sustainably. So we're the largest grower of certified organic grapes in Australia. And I guess our philosophy behind that is that grapes get their flavour from the soil. If you can treat the soil as best as you possibly can, then you're going to grow the best tasting grapes that you possibly can, so you can make the best tasting wine that you possibly can.
Speaking of, I need to taste these wines. They're right in front of me, calling my name. Where should I start?
Start with a nice white. I think that's a Fiano. Alternanus Fiano.
Which is very popular at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an Italian grape variety, but it does really well in McLaren Vale. I think it's probably the white grape that McLaren Vale does the best.
It smells beautiful. Oh, that's delicious. Fiano is like the new go-to wine, isn't it? A lot of girls love Fiano. A lot of the ladies. We love this drink.
It's a lovely hedge between Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay. So it has your aromatics, it has a little bit of texture. From a winemaking perspective, it's a fun wine to make because you could make it in different styles. And you can make it a really tight, light, acid-driven wine, or you can pick it a little bit later and it can make more of a richer textural wine. We try and sort of split it right in between. So, you know, it does have freshness and lovely vibrant acidity, but it does have a little bit of texture, and hopefully it's, you know, you can have something with salt and pepper squid, or I think, you know, we're eating more and more Asian foods, and a wine like Fiano just complements them so well.
Perfectly, yes. And I'm guessing it complements chocolate too.
Everything goes with chocolate, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of Chardonnay, you have two here. Family Crest Chardonnay?
Yeah, Family Crest Chardonnay is actually from the Adelaide Hills, which is a fantastic place to grow Chardonnay. It's only about sort of 15 kilometres away from here, and it's at an altitude of about sort of 350 metres, so a little bit higher than where we are here, which is better for sort of cool climate Chardonnay. So really lovely sort of a little bit of oak on the nose. We don't mind about sort of 20% new French oak in our Adelaide Hill Chardonnay. But the thing with Chardonnay I love is just that sort of texture, lovely fruit-driven palate, lovely acidity that just carries it straight through the palate.
It's fruity but toasty at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh, yum. Like a popcorn type of...
Chardonnay. Yeah, butter popcorn. Beautiful.
It's delicious, this one. And what about with our Grenache here on the end?
So...
Alternatus.
Yep. I think something McLaren Vale does so well is Grenache. It's only a small part of the plantings in the region. It's about 7%, so a very small amount. But someone like James Halliday would say that if you're going to grow Grenache anywhere in the world, McLaren Vale is the place to grow it. It's just absolutely perfect red grape for the climate here. And
it's the smell of this one, like a bouquet of flowers. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, many people call it the warm climate Pinot Noir. It's more of a medium-bodied red, and the reason I love Grenache is its versatility with food. You know, and versatility with the environment that you're drinking it in. You can even in summertime put a bottle of Grenache in the fridge, chill it down nicely, and it's like a nice medium-bodied sort of cool red wine, or it goes equally well in the middle of winter with your favourite takeaway pizza.
Oh, lovely. It's like strawberries.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so nice. It's so drinkable too. Very smooth, silky smooth, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have to match it with one of these chocolates and...
Yeah, beautiful bespoke chocolates.
This one's calling my name.
Made. Yeah.
Can I try it with this one, do you think?
Yep.
Yeah. Look at that. Beautiful.
Whoa.
Grenache inside.
That looks delicious.
Sorry.
I've got the cheese option, so I'll have to...
I do love cheese. It really has been a treat for all the senses here at Angove and in the entire McLaren Vale region. It's the incredible wine, the beautiful food, and of course the people. I think I could stay here forever. For this episode and more, make sure you jump online, and I'll see you next time on the Cellar Door.